So there are actually two quizzing tools within Canvas. There's what's now being called the classic quizzing tool, or quizzes. It's called quizzes on the course menu bar. But Canvas has come out with a new quizzing tool, and it is called New Quizzes, or quizzes.next actually is how it's referred to. Unfortunately, they haven't landed on a name for it. So it's called New Quizzes, it's called quizzes.next, and sometimes it's called Quizzes 2. And so I want to look at both just quickly. I will spend most of my time on the classic quizzes tool because that's what most people use. But I want to show you just a couple things in the new quizzes tool that are kind of cool, but there's some things in there that are a little frustrating with the way it scores a quiz too. So I'm just going to, kind of start presenting those things. If you have a question or whatever, if you just want to unmute yourself and interrupt me, that's fine. Otherwise, you can type your question in the chat and I'll get to it, when I can in a break or whatever. And so I'm going to share my screen with you, and I'm going to share, well, actually I'm going to do this. And I'm going to share a class with you here. So I'm just in Canvas already. I'm in a course. And I want to create a new quiz. And it's just Canvas's vocabulary. A quiz that's just what they call every test, or it could be a test, an exam, a quiz. It can actually even be a survey. It can be any of those, whatever you call any of those things. They're all just quizzes in Canvas. And so what we mean by that, of course, is a quiz or a test and exam that your students would take inside of Canvas. And so so I'm going to click on the quizzes tool, or really what would be better is if I went to the modules for this class and I went to whatever week, week 10. If I'm going to give a quiz next week, I would go to week 10 and I would add a quiz. And so you can do it either way. You can go to the quizzing tool and you would see all of your quizzes. Let me just go there real quick, I guess. You would see all of the quizzes that you have for this course. I only have 3 built for this course right now. This little rocket icon, I don't know how they decided on a rocket for a quiz, but a rocket is the classic quiz tool, okay? If it's a new quiz, it shows up as just an assignment icon. And so here's the quizzes that I already have built in this course, and I can add a new quiz, create it, and so on, and then add it to a module. But I'm just going to add it to the module in the first place so that it shows up there when I'm done making it. And so I'm going to go to just week 1 here, and I'm going to go plus for that module. I'm going to add a quiz in this pop-up menu. And I could either add one of those ones that I already built. If I did it first, I can just add it to this module right here. But I'm going to build a new quiz. And I'm going to call this week 10 quiz. If you break up your grades in, if you weight your grades in Canvas and so on, you can choose what, I might put this in the quizzes area of this, or exams, or whatever portion. You can indent once you put it out there in the module. You do that here or there. So I'm going to add that item. And so there's my week 10 quiz. And so when I click on that to go in and be able to edit it, this would be where the students would see the instructions for the quiz. So maybe this is a 12-question multiple choice true false exam. It's worth whatever you want to say about the exam. You'll take it right here within Canvas and so on. They can take a quiz on a phone. So if that's all they have, they can do it in a phone. You can preview the quiz right here or right here, but I don't have anything in there yet, so there's nothing to preview. This will tell them how many points it's worth, all those different things here. But for me to create it in the first place, I'm going to go up here to edit. And so I'm going to click on edit. And what I want you to see in this screen is that there's 2 parts to every quiz in Canvas. There's the details, which are things like is it a graded quiz? Because there's options here. Graded quiz, I can shuffle the answers, I can set a time limit, I can allow them multiple, there's just all these different settings in here, when it's due, all that kind of stuff. And then there's the questions itself, okay? The questions itself is where you would create the questions. And you'll notice that there are 3 different ways to create questions in a Canvas quiz. I'm going to start with the most basic, but let me just, which is just create a new question right now in Canvas. Let me just explain these other ones real quick. I can create a question group. And so what a question group is basically a question bank. And in that, so I could import my publisher questions for this week 10 chapter or whatever. I can import those questions wherever I created them in a Word document. I can import them. If you send them to me, I can import them for you. You create a question group. And then once you have that group, then you can go here and find questions, and you can tell it to just pick, let's say you put a question group in there of 50 questions. You can go in and find questions and tell it to pick 20 at random from those 50 for each student. And so this is handy when you're building like a midterm or a final, because if you've created like a chapter test, each chapter, and each one of those chapter tests has had whatever, 20 questions in it, then when you make your midterm or final, you could say pick 5 from chapter 1, pick 3 from chapter 2, pick 7 from chapter 4, so on. You can build this, and it will randomly choose that many questions from each of those groups, and every student has a different test randomly chosen for them. And that's a major way to cut down on cheating, because everybody has a different test basically. And as long as you've approved all the questions in the question group, as long as those are all good questions according to your opinion, then it doesn't matter which one of those is picked. And it's an advantage if they are the types of questions that can be auto-graded, like a multiple choice or true false or whatever. But even if they're essay questions, then, or let's say that, some of them are essay questions, some of them are multiple choice, true false, matching, whatever, to where most of your test is going to be auto-graded. But there's a couple essays at the end, and those can even be randomly assigned to students. Then, you just go in and grade those at the end, and that would be still unique to that student. So we'll look at those in more detail in a minute here, but I just want to go into new question. I'm just going to create a question in here. And so what you'll notice is this kind of looks like it's the rich content editor for everything else you create in Canvas, a page, a discussion, an assignment, whatever. But up here at the top is what you want to pay attention to. So you can title the question right here, and I would not title it with a number, because you might want to shuffle these questions later, and so you don't want a number in there. And so you can put a topic for the question. This question has to do with order of operations. You don't have to have a title. You can just leave it as question, but you can title it if you want to. And notice right here with this pop-up menu, these are the types of questions that you can do in the classic version of quizzes. So multiple choice, of course, would be a very common one. True, false would be a very common one. Fill in the blank is a common one, but you have to be careful with fill in the blank. If you're auto-grading it, auto-grading fill in the blank, because whatever answer you put, let's say that, I don't know, let's say that my answer to this order of operation question, let's say the answer is multiplication. Well, if I type in my answer to be capital M, multiplication, and they put in lowercase m, multiplication, that'll be wrong. Now you can do variations of your answers, so you can put in the correct answer with variations, but if they misspell it, if they do it in all caps, if they do it, fill in the blank is a little bit tough for auto grading, so you have to be careful with that. Not that you can't go in and manually grade all those, but for auto grading it's a little bit tough. Fill in multiple blanks, that's just if you had separate lines in the same question or whatever. Multiple answers, I'm trying to remember exactly what that looks like, multiple answers, because there's multiple drop downs, and so you can do a drop down question, which is you give them some options and it would drop down in a menu and they'd have to choose the right one to go in that space. There is a matching question, and so you could have 10 vocabulary words on the left and then 10 different definitions on the right, and they have to match the right one with the right one. A numerical answer is just graded differently than a fill in the blank. The numerical answer would have to be to specific significant digits, and it would have to be to the correct decimal place. And so numerical answer is kind of specific, more for math, engineering, statistics, those kinds of questions. A formula question, and so it could be asking, again, I'd have to double check the formatting of this, but I believe it's asking for them to use a specific formula and show that formula. An essay question is obviously not auto-graded. It is something where they just type a paragraph or whatever that you ask them to, and then you have to manually grade that. Of course, you have to read their essay, and there'll be a place in the top right-hand corner to give them how many points they got out of however many it's worth for that one question. You can make it a file upload question. So the question can be, I'm not sure exactly why you would do this as a test, but you could write a one-page paper on whatever topic. And that, I don't know why you wouldn't make that an assignment, but it could be a test. A text would be to where they just fill in a box like this rich content editor on their screen. So you can play with these, and you can search these in the Canvas guides and see exactly what each question type does and what you're expected, what the students will be putting in and so on. Obviously, most people kind of stay up here towards the top. Matching is pretty common. Numerical answer is pretty common. Essay is very common. You can play with this and see what these different ones do and what they're expected of. So I'm just going to stay with multiple choice just as an example here. I can set how many points I want this particular question to be, and that does become important later, because the only way that Canvas quizzes does a total number of points for the test is it adds up all these points that you do. Okay, you can't say this test is worth 100 points and my points only add up to 10 or 12 or whatever. It's whatever these points add up to, that's how much how much the test overall is worth. So I'm ready to create my first question here. This is a rich content editor. You can put anything in here. You can put a table, you can put a video, you can put a link to an article, you can put a picture. You can put a picture of something and say, what is this? Maybe for biology or for whatever. You can insert a YouTube video and ask specific questions about things within the video, whatever the content is. You can put whatever you want in here. Typically, of course, you're just going to type a question. And so, so I can put in whatever. I am just completely drawing a blank right now, but you can put in whatever your question is. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank to come up with a question that has multiple choices and so on. What is the answer? I can say, now notice how this is formatted in the bottom here. The very first choice here is the correct answer to the question. And so you don't put in like ABC here, you just type the answer itself. And so, so there's the correct answer to the question. Okay, then you put in the distractors, the other answers. And so you can come back and edit these with the pencil. You can trash one and add another one down here, add another answer. It doesn't have to stay 4 choices. You can make it 5 or 6 or however many you want. If you do come back in and edit this, then you do need to make sure that you hit update question right here. And I'm going to have to do that to save this first one to begin with. And so there's my question. Here are my 4. I chose 4. You don't have to have 4, but these are the 4 answers. And this one is the correct one. So I'm going to update that question. And I now have a question in my test, my exam, my quiz here. If I check off this box, I can show the question details right in here. Otherwise, I would have to click on this pencil to see the question and answers again. Okay. I'm not changing anything here, so I'm just going to cancel that. So I can see my question details right here to see, and it tells me right now which one is the correct one as well. I can delete the question if I want to delete it. And so I'm just going to, I'm just going to keep typing questions in here. Now, do know that we offer a service. You can email this to me or Amanda. If you have your tests already put together in a Word document, it can't be a PDF, it has to be a Word document, then we have a piece of software. We only have 2 copies of it. That's just the way that software was purchased. We have 2 copies of this piece of software called Respondus 4. And what it does is it takes in a Word document, takes in a doc or a docx file. We run it through that software. It converts it to a file that we upload to your Canvas course. And then that becomes a quiz in Canvas, all formatted for you, all ready to go. As long as you format the Word document according to the instructions in the teacher's toolbox, then it just converts that. The correct answers are already put in there. It's pretty much ready to go. You obviously should check it and make sure that everything's correct in it, but you don't have to type all this out if you've already done it in a Word document. It's a huge time saver for you. So just know that that's a service that we provide. That's an option for you. If you have a Word file, it could be a text file actually. And so let me just show you real quickly where the instructions for that are. Let me go here and go to the toolbox. So you have this in your Canvas, your card set here. You have a Reedley Teacher's Toolbox now. We put everybody in it on Thursday. I believe that it's under preparing for a new semester, but it's also under tools for teaching and student success. But you can always go to this alphabetical listing and look for converting a quiz under C, or Microsoft Word document, I think it's under M. I'm just going to go here, preparing for a new semester. And I think it's the last one. Yeah, how to convert exams in Word to Canvas quizzes. So if I click on that, there is a video here to show you step by step how to do this entire process to format your Word document the way it needs to be formatted. And this document that's at the freeze frame of this video is right here. So if I click on that magnifying glass, the document that shows you how your questions have to be formatted are right here. And so here's a perfect example of how a multiple choice should or could be formatted. Here's that title. I put in, where did I put in? Order of operations for the title of my question. So you can do that. You don't have to do that though. You can just format it this way. And then, so the question number has to either have a period or a parenthesis after it. Each answer has to be either a period or a parenthesis after it. And this has to be typed. You can't type these 4 lines and then highlight it and then format it in Word as a ordered list, to do A, B, C, D. It doesn't understand that. This actually has to be typed right here. And so this asterisk means that that is the correct answer to this question. So if you format every one of your questions in Word to look exactly like that, then they'll go directly through Respondus into Canvas and show up in there correctly. It's either the asterisk like this, or you can essentially create a key at the end, and it will understand that too. So here's all the answers instead of doing the asterisks by each one. Here is how to, you can provide feedback depending on whether they got it right or wrong. They get some feedback within Canvas. Here's a true false. It's basically the same thing. It can be parenthesis or period. An asterisk marks the correct answer. How to format essay questions. It needs to have a type E in front of it. That tells Canvas to make it an essay question. Here is a fill in the blank question. All the formatting for here's how to do a matching format. All the instructions are right here of how to do this. And again, this video shows you how to do all the steps to create your document, and then down here, send it to me or Amanda, and we'll convert it for you. So that is an option to get your Word documents into Canvas quizzes. And so again, you're just gonna, I'm gonna add another question, and I'm gonna do the same thing over again. I'm just gonna type out my questions inside Canvas and create my quiz in here.
Kevin, may I interrupt you for a second?
Absolutely.
Um, only is it always the first line that is the correct answer? Because that's where we were typing the correct answer. How do we make it not the first choice?
Canvas automatically randomizes these.
Okay.
So once you put it in there, some of them will end up being A, some of them will end up being B, some of them will end up being C, some will end up being D. But also, once you get out here in the details, sorry, let me cancel this thing. Once you have all your questions done, and you come back to details for that, I would highly recommend that you check off this box right here, shuffle the answers. Okay. So again, at least not every, a student can't go through and be the first one to take the quiz and then send off all the, 1 is C, 2 is B, 3 is A, and send that off to everybody else in the class, because at least you're shuffling the answers for one thing that could be, to help with cheating a little bit. The advantage to those question banks is that you can randomize the order of the questions also. So that's a help there.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So again, this is going to be your instructions. Again, this is a 10 question multiple choice, or whatever your instructions are. You have 60 minutes to take this test, whatever your instructions are. It is graded, but again, you can do surveys. You can give them a practice test if you want to. It's not going to be graded. It's just a practice for them. Again, if you weight your grades, what category you want this score to go into, I would definitely shuffle the answers. You can put in a time limit if you want, 60 minutes or whatever. You can allow multiple attempts, and which, do you keep the highest or do you keep the last one? Do you average them all, whatever, and then how many to put in there, how many times they get to take it. This box is actually relatively confusing. So the purpose of this is to let them see their quiz responses and when. Only once after each attempt can they see what which ones they got incorrect and so on. You can also let them see the correct answers to the quiz after a certain point. So if you make this quiz due, whatever, March 30th, and then you open up the answers on April 1st, there's just some, if somebody doesn't quite get to the test on the 30th, and then you open it up, for them to take it late, or there's just some, there's good and bad in this. Yes, they should be able to see the correct answers so that that's feedback to them and they can learn, from that and all those kinds of things. But it does also open up more possibilities for some cheating going on and other things. So you can play with this. You can just turn off that whole box right there. I like this, but that's up to you. This will just show one question after, at a time, to where the whole quiz is not on their screen, but just one question. When they submit that question, it goes to the next question, and you can lock it so they can't go back and answer one, a previous question. That, again, completely up to you. You can set a password for your quiz to where you have to have given them a password, which I don't know exactly. A lot of people use that when they're doing quizzes in a lab on campus to know, the students get into that lab and then they write the password on the board so that you can't be at home taking the quiz or whatever. I'm not sure in a fully online why you would want to set a password, but that's an option. This would be if they are taking it in a specific lab on campus, you can make sure that they only can be in that lab to take the quiz. So that's not really an option right now. Assign it typically to everyone when it's due. And I would use, for a quiz, I would use an availability, but that's up to you. When I give my midterms, it's available from 7 a.m. Friday morning until midnight Sunday night. You have to take it in that 65-hour window somewhere. And I don't accept late midterms or finals. And so if you use this, then they can't even get into it after this end date. So if somebody needs to take it late, you can always add another box here and add just their name in this list and give them, another day to do it or whatever. If you make all these settings and you're ready for this to be out there, even though it's not available until later, then you would save and publish it. So even though you're publishing it, if it's not available until March 30th, they can't see it. They can see that it's coming, but they can't, see the quiz to where they can click in it or anything. So
Kevin, where is the choice to auto grade versus manual grading?
Well, it's going to auto grade anything that it can. So it's going to auto grade multiple choice. It's going to auto grade true false. It's going to auto grade fill in the blank. It's going to auto grade matching. Any of those options that it can auto grade, it will just automatically do that. You can always change the grade, but it will do that.
Okay.
An essay question, of course, it can't auto grade, and so it won't.
But the students will not see that portion of auto grade until you finish all of the grading, or will they?
If you check one of those boxes for them to see, yeah, it has to be fully graded before they see it.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you have whatever, 15 multiple choice true false questions or whatever, and the last 2 questions are essay, yeah, they don't see the results until you finish the essay grading.
Okay, good.
Yeah, right. Let me just go back into questions here a little bit. Do I have an example? I don't think I have an example of if I go into, so this is back to the questions link, and so I can add one question at a time and so on. Let me see, I don't think I have, yeah. See, if I had a question, I don't think I have any question banks. Oh, I do. Well, these are probably 0 questions, 0 questions. Well, I have one called 4 questions. Yeah, let's see what that is. I'm going to select, so if I had created a question bank, and I can go view those and manage those here and so on. But if I just find that bank that has 4 questions in it, because all these other ones have 0, if I go to this 4 questions and select that bank, I can tell it to, in this unfiled questions group, I can tell it to pick whatever. I only have 4 choices, so let's say 2 of those questions, and each one of them is worth 10 points. And so from that group of 4, it'll randomly choose 2 for every student, and they'll each be worth 10. But, raise those numbers up. So if there were 50 questions in there, I could have it randomly pick 25 for every student, and they could each be worth 4 points or whatever to make 100. And what I do to make that happen is I create group. Let's see what happens when I create group. So it's added this to my question. So I have that one question I made, and then it's added those questions right here that are randomly going to be picked for every student. So literally when a student goes in, clicks on the quiz, and says, take quiz, right then it randomly makes a quiz for that particular student out of the questions that you've created here. And so again, I could do this for chapter 1, pick 3 questions, chapter 2, pick 4 questions, chapter 5, pick 5 questions, however many groups you want to make up the entire realm of your test questions here. So that's this new question group button. This find questions, this allows me to go into those question banks that I have. So the only one I have questions in is this one. And so I can go in and actually pick questions for a test. So if you don't want it to randomly pick, however many, I can go in and actually pick the questions for every test. Okay. And this is another way that you can add questions to a particular group also. Question group. Okay. There's a couple different ways to get to your question banks. One of them is inside of one of these windows that I've opened up. So if I click on that, it takes me to my question banks, and I can manage my question banks here. Here's the answer. I can add more questions to this question bank. Right here, add a question bank. I can move them from one question bank to another. I can delete the bank. I can work with my question banks in here. Trying to think of, if I get back, if I go to quizzes in general over here, if I go to quizzes, And I believe question banks is also right here. Manage question banks in this 3 dots next to add quiz. I can go to manage question banks from right there as well. And go in and create a new question bank and add my questions there. When we do that process of importing from Word into Canvas, it automatically creates a question bank of those questions for every quiz. So it builds those question banks for you. So when I go back to my quiz, let me show you what it looks like here. Where did I make it? Right there. So, oops, sorry. Let me just go back one step here. Actually, let me go home. I'm going to go home and I'm going to go into student view. I want to show you what this looks like from a student view. So if I go into student view and I go into my modules and I go down to that quiz I just made, week 10 quiz, that's what it looks like for students. Take the quiz. So if I take the quiz, there's my question. I'm not sure why my other questions aren't showing up. But anyway, here's my question. What is the answer? Notice it's not in the order that I put them in. Right? What is the answer? This one is the answer. And I submit my quiz right here because that's all there is. If there were more questions, they would either show on this screen, or if I checked off that box that said one question at a time, then it would flip to the next question, flip to the next question. When it's on the last question, it would be submit quiz. And so I would submit the quiz, and it tells me that I have made one attempt and score for this quiz. It does tell me my overall score, so I can at least see how I did. I just can't see, which ones I missed and so on because I unchecked that box. But I can at least see that I got 100%. I got 1 out of 1. So I'm going to leave student view. Anybody have any questions on the classic quizzes tool?
No, that was great. Thank you.
Okay, let me see what's going on in chat. So Emily says, I teach English. Usually my quizzes are around 10 questions, include multiple choice, short answer, true, false, fill in the blank. I usually give them around 15 minutes in class, give or take. What would you recommend in terms of the time allowed? That seems a little bit fast to me, but depends on the questions and so on. I'm a math guy, so I would take maybe a little bit more time in English. I don't know. You can certainly create, from what I demonstrated here, you can certainly create a quiz like that with multiple choice, short answer, true, false, fill in the blank. All those are options in here, and you can make all those different kinds of questions inside of one quiz. I would just maybe, especially if it's your first one, as we convert to online and so on, if it's your first one that they're taking, I might just give them a little bit more time to figure out how this all works and so on. By your third or fourth one in April or whatever, then yeah, maybe you can narrow the time down. They should be getting the hang of it by then and so on. Yeah, that's my opinion anyway. That's all it is opinion. Let me show you 2 more quick things before we go to new quizzes. If you have any DSPS students, DSPNS students that need accommodations for a quiz, you can go right here, moderate this quiz, and in here, all of your students will be listed, okay? And in this list, you can click on that student name, and this is not working correctly because I don't actually have students in here, but what it should do, yeah, it's not doing it for me. If I actually had students in here, when you click on that test student, oh, here we go. Sorry, they've changed that. When you click on that little pencil to edit that student next to their name, then here's where you can give extra attempts. So I don't know how many ESPNS students have extra attempts as an accommodation. But if I had set a time on this, it's not showing up because I didn't set a time frame. But if I said, whatever, 60 minutes and they require time and a half on tests, then you can change it to 90 minutes for them inside here, just for that one student. And so accommodations are in here. under moderate quiz over here. In order to grade, like if you do essay questions or things you have to manually grade, again, when I'm in the quiz here, speed grader is an option. So when I click on speed grader, it opens up the speed grader tool. I see, the questions. I see what they answered, and it is correct, and so on. If it was incorrect, or if it was a fill in the blank and I see they just misspelled the word, and I'm not going to hold them accountable for that. I know that they knew what the answer was. They just didn't know how to spell it or whatever. I can change the points right here, and I can update the score right here. You can also give what are called fudge points. And so let's say I blew it and this question is a terrible question. I didn't give, one of the choices was not even correct. I blew it. All 4 answers were wrong, or, whatever. Somehow you blew it. Then you can give this person, the 1 point that they would have, that they shouldn't be held accountable for. You do have to do that for every student, but it is an option at least to do fudge points. And you can play with the fudge points, with whatever you want to do with that. But if this was an essay question, this would be empty right now. I could read their answer right here. I could then give them point. Let's say it's worth 5. I could put in whatever, 3, 4, 5. I could put in their score for that essay right there, and then update the score and move on. Here's my list of students. So I would just, once I score one of them, I can give them comments. You did a great job in this exam, whatever, if you want to. Video and audio feedback even if you want to. And then I just click here and go to the next student. Click here and go to the next student. I just file through the student list and grade their essay questions or fill in the blank questions or whatever right here within Speed Grader. It's a great tool. This is a great tool. All right. Anything else on classic quizzes before I show you the new quizzing tool? Okay. Now the new quizzing tool, I'm gonna have to check and make sure. The new quizzing tool you actually have to turn on right now. We haven't turned it on by default. I think we do that. Well, the plan was to do that. Gosh, I can't remember what the date was. Was it in June? I don't remember. I'd have to figure it out. But you can turn it on yourself. So I went to settings, and I went to I'm going to go to feature options right here. If you've never been to feature options, you can play around with some of these things. Like here's the new rich content editor enhancements. That changes that menu of tools in the rich content editor in your class. But right here, new quizzes. So no, I don't have it turned on here. So I'm going to turn on new quizzes in this course. And I'm going to go back home just to kind of lock that in. I'm going to go to my modules. Now, here's what's kind of maybe a little bit weird. And actually, they keep doing some changes on this. And I haven't played with this tool in a little while. So I'm just going to verify this as we go. But there is no like tool over here like quizzes that says new quizzes. It doesn't show up that way. It actually goes in as an assignment. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the next one here, and I'm going to go to my next module. I'm going to add, and I'm going to make it an assignment. I'm going to go new assignment, and I'm going to call this week 11 quiz or exam or whatever. I'm going to call it something else. Just doesn't matter what the name is. It's going to be a test. When I go into that week 11 exam, I am going to edit this. And the way I make it, this is kind of complicated, a little bit complicated. The way I make, it looks like any other assignment. I can give instructions here. I can say how many points it's worth, what area it goes to if I weight my grades, how to display, so on. The key to making this a new quizzing tool is the new quizzing tool is actually like a separate, Canvas made it, but it's like a third-party tool. And so under submission type, right here, I'm going to say external tool. When I say external tool, this little thing opens up, and so I'm going to say find. And again, it's a little confusing, but it's not called new quizzes, or it's called quizzes 2 in this list, and it's alphabetical. So I'm going to go down to quizzes 2 right here, and I'm going to choose that. I'm going to select, notice it's gray. I'm going to select quizzes 2. And I don't know. Now, see, what's different about this is I can say this test is worth 100 points no matter what I do with all the question points and so on. I just make this test worth 100 points no matter what. And so I'm just going to do that as a display grades as points. I can make a due date, you know, all those kinds of things. I am going to save that and watch my screen what happens when I save that. It's loading this new quiz builder tool. Now, what I like about this new quiz tool is that it is much easier, somewhat easier. It is easier to build a quiz in it, partly because you can rearrange the questions, and you know, there's just more tools within this and so on. And so I can go in here. I still want to keep that title, but I can edit that title if I need to. I can edit my instructions right here. But right here, this plus sign, that's where I start adding questions. So I click here, and here is how I choose what kind of question. And you'll notice there are a few more types of questions. And so there's a category. I like this categorization tool. So let's say that you're teaching whatever. Well, somebody the other day had one. They teach forestry, and so they wanted them to categorize types of trees. And so they had, you know, evergreen and deciduous and whatever. They had the different groups, and then these lists of all the tree types. And so you drag them when you're taking the quiz. You drag each thing into the box that it fits in. So that's kind of a cool other type of question. Ordering, I love the ordering one. And so the ordering, I had a question in a kind of a fun course that I was doing for teaching something else for staff or faculty. Put all the Porsche models in order of when they were released. And so when you click on that, literally, you know, there were 10 models, and you just drag them in the right order of when. So maybe a history question, you know, what happened first, what happened next, and so on. I love the hotspot one. Unfortunately, this is the only one that is not fully accessible. And so if you have sight impaired students, blind students in your classes, hotspot is not accessible for a screen reader, but it is a cool tool if you know you don't have any sight impaired students. So if it's something like you know, if you're teaching biology and you have a picture of a cell there, and you say, find the whatever, or I'm not a biology person, and so I don't find the whatever inside that diagram, and they have to click on the right part of that diagram to find the hotspot that you put in there for it. And so choosing the right, but there's only one per diagram is the only problem. And so hotspot is kind of a cool choice. The rest of these are normal. Stimulus, all stimulus means is that there's going to be something in there that they look at first. So say a video, watch this video and they answer the question, or read this paragraph and, you know, choose the right grammar for what sentence, or, you know, whatever. There's some kind of stimulus there for them to read or watch or see or whatever, and then answer the question. So that's kind of its own. Notice it's even below the line there. It's kind of its own separate deal. And so I'll just do a multiple choice just to show you that how it differs from what we just did. And so again, I don't necessarily know, and this is a little bit confusing. I don't necessarily know why Canvas always does this with their quizzing, but this is the title. So for my last example, this would be, what did I call it? This is my order of operations question. That's just the title. It looks like that would be the question, but it's not. Here's the question stem, it's called. And so here's the question stem. So you type the question, and again, you can put in a video, you can put in a picture, you can put in a link to something, you know, it's kind of a rich content editor, sort of. You can put in a formula, you know, whatever you want to here, and then here's your answers. And in this one, you can put in feedback. I didn't show you how to do that in the other one, but so you type your different answers here, and you can add more. This, I do like, being a math guy, I do like this, that you can either, and I'll show you where you can do it somewhere else, but you can have a calculator show on the screen all the time, or you can just have it show for one particular question. And so is highly recommended that you enable one question at a time mode to order. Oh yeah, so having one question at a time, like we did before, to be able to use the basic or scientific, and you can choose what type of calculator to show here. You can set that setting here, or you can set it in settings up here, where there's one question in the calculator, just shows for that one question then. Well, calculator is an option, on-screen calculator, vary points by answer, and so maybe some answers are more better than others or whatever, if you want to vary the points. Shuffle the choices, that's shuffling the answers for this particular question. This is where you can add outcomes. Most people don't have that necessarily in their courses yet, but you might. And then this is where you would add it to an item bank, question bank. Item bank and question bank are the same thing. So you can build your question banks right here with each question. This is where you say how many points it's worth, and you again can provide feedback based on whether they got it correct or incorrect and so on here. So there's several deeper tools in here. And then you would, let me just see, I don't know why this is not, why am I not being able to type in there? Wow, very strange for some reason. I'm trying to head off a question that one of you should be asking here. How do you designate the correct answer? Why am I not remembering how to do that right now? Oh, sorry, it's just this circle thing. And so this circle right here tells you which one is the correct answer. Okay. Let me check real quick here. Yes, thank you, Krista. It is the circle. I was being blind there. And so that's how you create one question at a time in building your test. I'm done with that question. Oh, STEM can't be blank. I didn't put my question in. My question was deep. What is the answer? So it won't let you make a question without actually having a question. That's a good safety net there. So there's, again, you can play with the different question types. This is where you work with question banks inside this new one. But notice that there's other tools up here at the top. So I can go into settings. I can shuffle the questions. Now I like that because otherwise they have to come from a question bank in the classic one. So I can shuffle questions. I can shuffle answers. I can say one question at a time. You can do a password here, just like the other one. You can set a time limit. So you can say time limit right here. You can allow a calculator for the entire test and say which kind. You can allow multiple attempts, and you can, this is where you results view and so on, like the classic one, whether they get to see which ones they got right, correct answers, all that kind of stuff. You can see reports once they take it. You can see, some different analysis once they've taken the quiz. And this is where you moderate this quiz. And so you can, I don't have any students, so you can search for a student here. I don't have any students in this class. So you can moderate where that will go in terms of which student that goes to. Okay. Mark is asking if it is being recorded, where is it going to show up? We're going to try to put these in the teacher's toolbox at some point. I don't know how many other people are recording their sessions, but I'll put them in the teacher's toolbox somewhere. We'll find a place in there to put those so that we can see those. When you're done, building, let me go back into the build. You can see how many points this question is worth. These are just like different views over here. And so here, I don't know why my little bubble is not showing up to show me what that is. This is probably not changing because I only have one question, and so it's just not doing a whole lot here. Because if I had more questions, they would be, here's question 1, it'd be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all listed down here to where you can move the questions around and so on. The interaction in this is much better than the old quizzing tool. Here's some of the problems with this new quizzing tool though. So let's say that you create one of those ordering questions. So like that one I had, so the 10 Porsche models, put them in the order of when they were released, so on. If you don't get every one of them right, you miss the whole question. There is no decimal point value. There's no, half credit. There's no partial credit at all. The ones like that, I had an instructor make their midterm in here, and they did one long matching question. So they had 50 matching things. I think it was vocabulary terms with their definitions. Well, if you didn't get every one of them right, you got the whole question wrong. And so there's a couple things that they still have to work on in this. But if it's a basic multiple choice, true, false, basic quiz, I definitely like this tool better. In terms of it, especially from the instructor side, and it's a little bit cleaner from the student side in terms of taking the exam as well. Completely your option which tool you want to use. The classic quizzes is a little bit easier in some respects. Entirely up to you. Questions on this new quizzing tool?
I think I kind of have a general question. I don't know that it applies to one or the other, but
okay.
If the students are having, like, say they're taking the quiz and they lose connection or something, will it let them go back in, or is it best to allow multiple attempts, or like how does that?
If they come back to you and tell you that has happened, you can moderate the quiz for them and give them another attempt. By default, I believe if they get kicked out, then I don't think they can get back in again. And so
okay, but it will manually let us go back in there and
right.
and reset it for them? Okay.
Right, you can give them another attempt. Moderate this quiz. Yeah. I want to be respectful of your time. We're at 7 o'clock. It's the hour, so I don't want to hold you. But if you have questions, I'll certainly hang out. Although I guess I do have another session. Anybody have anything else?
This was very informative. I really appreciate it, Kevin.
You bet. Sure. I kind of have to scream through it a little bit there to get it all in on our time frame, but again, you can always go to the Canvas guides. Just search guides.instructure.com, sorry, and you can look up quizzes, and there's lots of stuff there to show you how to make quizzes and so on. But hopefully you can catch some of what we had here, and I will post this somewhere in the teacher's toolbox for you to refer back to. Okay. Thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate your time very much. You can always email me. We can always do this again one-on-one. Whatever you need, just let me know and I'll try to help in any way that I can. Amanda is available as well.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.